I don't know, you hear all these things, right? Where, oh, it's a camp, it's a federal camp, it's Camp Cupcake. It's not. It's prison. And I guess I didn't know what to expect physically, right? And seeing it for the first time, but when I walked in there, it took my breath away. And I just thought this cannot be where I'm gonna be. Like, this is where I'm gonna be every day. I understand that people have their opinion and their feelings because they are basing it off of what they saw in the media. They're basing it off of the headlines. But what I would hope is that they would give me the grace to at least hear me and to understand that, I'm more than just the headline. I'm more, to recognize that I am a mother, I'm a wife, that I'm a whole person. I'm so much more than just the one side that they saw out there. Everybody makes mistakes. And I think it's about, how do you come back from that? How do you use that? And, how do you accept responsibility and take the accountability and move forward?
You're accused of fraud.
Have you had any contact with your assistant in the past few days?
What do you say to your fans?
It's one of the reasons that I fought for my innocence, because the time frame that was noted in the indictment in 2012, I wasn't running any companies in 2012 for quite a long time until, recently before the indictment. I was working for different corporations, right? I was like worked in marketing, and so that was a little bit confusing for me when that happened, because I didn't understand why I wasn't running anything at that point. I was literally an employee at a company, but I worked in the industry. I worked in the industry in total. So I think, how does one get there, or how does that come about? I think it's just a matter of who who I worked with, the companies I worked with, and doing, direct response marketing. And um, it's such a, you think you're doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing for, uh, the majority of the time, and also under the direction of other people that were running the companies. And um, honestly, you get there if you're not careful. You get there if you are not being diligent in your business dealings. You get there if you're not paying attention to the red flags. That's how you get there. And it can happen without your intention for it to happen. But you have a responsibility, once you are in that business position, to make sure that you're being diligent. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, in 2012, I was a W-2 employee for a fulfillment company. I worked for multiple fulfillment companies in the Valley. So that there was, I literally was not the kingpin, and that's where, some of this, that's why I really felt and fought for my innocence, because I truly believed in my innocence. Because at that time when the indictment came out, I was like, wait, what are they talking about? And we were waiting for supporting documentation. The accusations were in the indictment, but you have to go through the legal process to find out, your attorneys are trying to find out from the prosecution and the government, what are the facts, or what is the evidence, what is the documentation that you have to back up these claims?
Seeing Reefy or Omar graduating, do you know how scared I am?
I made the decision to accept a guilty plea, and I take full responsibility for everything that comes with making that decision to accept a guilty plea. My charge is for conspiracy. And so under the law, what does the government need to prove to find me guilty under conspiracy? That's when my attorneys are educating me on, okay, these are the jury instructions in order for them to find you guilty under conspiracy. There does not need to be an overt action to be found guilty under conspiracy. There just needs to be enough text messages, emails, communication to show that you conspired with others, with somebody, like with my co-defendant. And it was also the very first time that I actually saw that there were actual victims in as a result of this conspiracy. Like, that was the first time I had ever seen anything, with my own eyes. At that point, that's when I had to realize, what are the risks now? Now this is real. Now I'm seeing these things in front of me. There is a risk, because the burden of proof that the government has to prove to find me guilty, it's a little bit different now that I'm seeing the information, and now that we finally saw what the documentation looked like, and I saw that there were people hurt, and really looking at it, what was the risk now for me to go to trial? Because it just takes one person, right? One person on the jury to maybe not agree, or to you'd say, you know what? I don't know. I think she was able to explain the context of all of these emails or text messages, but I don't know. Maybe she was so close with this person. Maybe it just takes one person to think that. And I really thought, well, just the truth is going to prevail. And they said it's not about the truth at trial, Jen. It's about the story that is told, and what story is the jury going to believe. And that was like the hardest decision that I ever made, because at that point I was like, do I continue to do I drag my family through this and go to trial and perhaps still lose? And then what? I get the maximum. And not only that, but now I've destroyed their credit, their lives, right? I mean, putting, my family was going to get on the stand and speak on my behalf, and do I put them through all of that heartache and through their names getting dragged through the mud, right? Just because I'm want to prove my innocence so badly. And that's when I looked at it and I said, I can't do that. I can't do that. I have to it wasn't worth it for me anymore at that point, because I couldn't barter or risk or gamble with my family. And knowing that when I saw the documentation that I did have responsibility, because under the conspiracy law, and seeing that I had responsibility, I should have done more. I should have been more diligent. There was some red flags with my co-defendant. I should have dug in more when things didn't sound right. And so at that point, that's when I said, you know what? I have to be accountable. And it was hard for me, but I thought, this is on me. This is not on my family. This is not on, my husband and my children to go through this. And so that's when I just said, I have to take responsibility for my part. At what point do you let your ego go so that you can do what's right, so that you can take care of the people in your life that you should? And that's when it wasn't important to prove a point anymore. It was important to take accountability and say, I had a part. I chose to do business with with my co-defendant. I chose to do business, and it wasn't about anymore, just trying to prove I'm innocent. I couldn't risk my family dragging them through that. I could have still gone, my husband. He was there with me, and I couldn't imagine being away from him, or that this was happening, because I had fought the whole time, thinking that, truly believing that I was innocent.
I'll take whatever, but to have it affect my husband and my sons is killing me.
What I would say to somebody that lost money because of this is that I'm sorry for any part that I had. And I'm sorry that I didn't do more due diligence. I'm sorry that I didn't do more that could have possibly curtailed some of the, victims that, from happening in the first place. I'd like to say that I'm sorry, and I'm here and accepting responsibility, and have made it, my mission as part of, like, my consequences and my responsibilities to make sure that people are paid back through the restitution. And I hope that everybody else that had a part in this does the same thing, because these people deserve to be made whole.
You served your sentence at the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, beginning on February 17th, 2023. What was your first night in prison like?
The first night, when I walked in, and they showed me to my room, or to my cell, um, and I had two other roommates. Pebbles and Myra, we called her Giggles. And I walked in and everyone knew I was coming, right? Everyone. So there was just so much like attention and everyone was, yelling stuff and saying stuff and there was just it was just a lot because they already knew I was coming, so they were like waiting for me to surrender that day. And so when you surrender, you don't have access to use the phone or anything because they have to like set everything up, and so you don't have a pack number yet to call, right? And that first night I was on a top bunk and I faced the cement wall and I just cried silently. I just tears just because I just streamed down my face. And um I didn't know how I was gonna do this because I was high profile. They did a lot of extra things um that didn't were unnecessary, to me. And that was one of the things was, I was required to have carry a pink card. It was like I felt like it was like the scarlet letter, letting everybody know who I am. And I had to carry it around and check in with officers every 2 hours. And it was just having officers come in and scream and yell and Shaw, get up. And I'm like, I go from being at home to my loving home, and then the next morning I'm being screamed at and woken up and so abruptly that it startled me, and I fell out of the bunk bed.
And everyone knew you. You said, are they asking you questions about the show?
Listen, it was like a BravoCon meet and greet, okay, when I got there. It's I literally. And I didn't know that there were so many fans there. I mean, I had people coming up to me saying, "Hi, I'm the president of the Salt Lake City fan club out of Louisiana." I mean, just crazy stuff, right? So you had people that I mean, yes, everybody knew there, and there was everybody had questions. It also brought a lot of attention to me that where in prison, you probably don't want to have that attention because you have a lot of people that look at you and treat you negatively just because you're from a different background that they think that than they are, right? And so it was difficult in the beginning, especially when I first got there. They had removed Bravo from all the TVs when I first got there because it was just so crazy. And it was drawing a lot of attention. But then after a few months, they put Bravo back on all the TVs, and it was just mayhem from then on. I mean, to the point where they had to move me units. They had to move me from my unit into another unit because of all of the like harassment and everything that was going on. And, I've likened it to this. If you can imagine, being on social media and, when you're getting a lot of hate or you're getting a lot of love or whatever it is, if you're on social media, you know how that can be and very it can affect your mental health. Well, this was like that, but in person. So you have all these people making their comments and coming up to you, and you're trying to navigate being in prison, right? So you have to coexist with these people, right? I can't just leave or turn it off. And so it was really hard. It was, because there was a lot of people that didn't realize and separate the show from reality and the fact that I'm here just like you are, wearing the same khakis just like you are, with the same $360 a month just like you do. That's all we get for commissary. We are the same. I had to figure out how to do my skincare while I was there, right? So hemorrhoid pads, because hemorrhoid pads, listen, hemorrhoid pads I had a lot of people that were after my skincare routine there, and hemorrhoid pads and then the laundry soap that was the winning combo for looking young over there. At least that was mine, but a lot of women adopted it. It was hemorrhoid pads have witch hazel in it, and so that was like really the only thing that I found I could use for like an astringent on your face. So yeah, anything. In fact, Coach would, I'd talk to him and he'd be like, "You need to buy food this week." You need to buy some food. Please don't buy any more hairspray. And I don't know what it was, but I got so worried that like, oh my gosh, they're gonna run out of hairspray at commissary, so I must stock up. So I had back stock of hairspray. I was like the health and beauty. I was like the Ulta at prison. While I was there, I I got certified my nutrition tech certification, and then I got certified as a personal trainer. So I was looking for something because they didn't have educational courses. They did away with the higher learning courses there. And so I would ask my husband, I said, I need to take some correspondence courses to stay busy. So through my husband, he found a company that we could do correspondence courses through. And so I got certified as a personal trainer. And so I taught a bunch of classes. And then I started working for recreation like the last maybe 16 months that I was there. I had quite a few jobs while I was there, but I worked at recreation and until I left, and that's when um, implemented a lot of more classes. So we had monthly schedules. I would put together all the workout classes, and then I started helping women like with their diets to put together, what they could eat to try to stay healthy because it's very, very hard there to eat healthy. And a lot of the women had high blood pressure or were overweight. And so they would ask, hey, what do you recommend? So I would help them put together, you know, a diet plan based on what they could buy at commissary and then also what you could eat what you could try to eat that was the most healthy in the chow hall. The food, listen, beans, rice, bread, potatoes. It's like all starches. Um, there were a few days that were coveted, like chicken on the bone Thursday. Like that was my favorite day, chicken on the bone day. I know coach asked me, why do you call it chicken on the bone? I'm like, that's not what it's called in the free world? I thought that's what it's called. It's like Popeyes, but in prison. It was chicken on the bone, and that was on Thursday. You got so any of the times that I could go get like protein, like you wanted to, those days were coveted. So, but it's a lot of carbs. I mean, that's what they're feeding the inmates. It's a lot of carbs. Rice, potatoes, bread. It's crazy. You'll have bread, rice, and potatoes on your tray. It's like nobody needs, all starches on their tray of food. But at commissary, you could supplement and get things at commissary. So I would buy just tuna and nuts. Um, we had some dry seaweed. They ended up having like a commissary council, and so I was able to get on that, so I could try to like influence some healthy options, for a little while. But really, it was like salmon, tuna and nuts. That's what I would, buy at commissary as far as food to try to, get the protein in that I could. I formed close relationships with, some of the ladies there. It's interesting because you meet these women there and there's a lot and you hear their stories, right? And some of the programs that I signed up for that I went through there, you get to know these women intimately and their stories and what they've been through. And hearing their stories is one of the things that, seeing their resilience, it's something that made me just reach another level of humility and gratitude than before because a lot of these women, they have gone through a lot. I thought that this was the end of the world for me when I went there. And, you know, I can't believe I was going through this. And then when I got there and I heard these other women and their stories that they've been through, and um, it just gave me another level of gratitude that, that I was very blessed, even though I was going through this and I was away from my family, just hearing their stories and realizing that a lot of them had gone through such generational trauma and drug addiction and things that really were out of their control and just hearing their stories but hearing their resilience and so you get really close to a lot of these women and I did make some close friends there. Lizzie and I are good friends. um, when you come through, I guess, as a high profile too, there are just certain things where you both are dealing with, right? And so you naturally kind of come together in those instances. And also, we both got assigned to poop duty together. So I feel like when you do poop duty with someone, like you're going to be close. So we lived in the same unit the the last maybe 10 months or so when I was there. We were in the same unit, and you are assigned to different bathrooms. Well, we were assigned to the same bathroom. Well, if someone in your bathroom does not like clean it or something like that, you get a strike. If your bathroom gets 3 strikes, you have to do poop duty. So, listen, we would try to make sure that like, hey, we're not doing poop duty. And I almost made it through my time without having to do it. And sure enough, we got hit. Our bathroom got hit. So you have to sign up for poop duty. You have to go sit in the bathroom, pull a metal chair in there and sit in the bathroom for an hour and watch everybody come in and use the bathroom. And then when they use the bathroom, you have to get up, go inspect the bathroom, either clean it if they don't clean it or let them know to come and clean it. But you're literally sitting there in the bathroom. So if you can imagine, the smells and everything going on for poop duty. And if you get more strikes, you keep doing hours of poop duty. We were both very busy during the day, right? And we kept ourselves busy. And in the evening, um, we would go um, take a walk around the track. And that's when we would have just, our time to just talk and, talk about how much we miss our family, talk about, things that were going on, important things that were going on in prison, um, different legislature that was like the First Step Act and how, certain challenges of it not being implemented and what remedies needed to be taken place, right, to try to help get these things, implemented at the institution level. Your hands are really tied there, right? There's not much you can do as an inmate, but I felt like, Lizzie and I felt like, we could make a difference and advocate, so we would talk about a lot of stuff like that, like, plans after, when we were both, going to get home. She would ask me, what do you think like it's going to be when you walk in the house? And what is your first, like, can you imagine that? Like, can you put yourself in there? Do you see yourself walking in the house? And it would be a lot of those kind of deep conversations. And there's a lot of heartache there too in prison. So it was just, being that sounding board for each other when you could just be like, hey, I need to just, can we go walk and cry? I just need to cry. I've had a day. And just knowing that you had somebody there that, kind of, understood you. We would talk a lot about, different books. I got her to I told her, I said, you need to, I'm hosting a line dancing class and I need you to sign up. And she was like, oh, really? I said, you need to sign up. So I got her to come to line dancing class. I was captain of the dance and step team, there. Uh, I know probably people are like, wait, you had a dance and step team in prison? Yeah, we did. But that's where she drew the line. She was like, no, I'm not. I'm good. I think I'm better off. My talents are better utilized elsewhere.
Another high-profile prisoner was Ghislaine Maxwell. Did you have any interactions with her?
I had interactions with her, limited interactions with her. I worked at recreation, right? And so she would come in and work at recreation, or work out. But her experience there is very different from anyone else's, even Elizabeth and I. She is treated very differently there. And, I didn't have a lot of interaction with her. It was just on a very, she would come over and talk to us, or I would see her if she would, come by recreation. But, and honestly, I chose that. I chose to have very limited interaction with her. She made it very publicly known, well, at least to, Elizabeth and I, that there's no remorse there. And again, I obviously don't know all the details of the case or whatever, but we know enough. It was a lot when the victims would be on TV and talking. She was just complete disregard for them, and this is when they are pouring their hearts out in front of Congress and for this files to be released and stuff. And so to see that kind of behavior when there are real victims that you're seeing and what they've gone through, and to be so dismissive of that just didn't sit with me the right way.
Thank you, excuse me.
How you doing,
Jen, do you have any how you doing? How you doing?
Thank you.
I made the decision when I accepted the guilty plea and when I knew I was going to go away from my family that I would make the most of every single day and every single moment that I was away from my family to be a better person and to take advantage of anything I could to be better, to do better, to get to know myself better, to really take a hard look at myself and, um, go through these treatment programs that a lot of people don't want to go through. It's like prison's hard enough, but why make it harder? Well, that's basically what I did. I was like, yep, sign me up. Let me make it as hard as possible. But it's because I wanted to do the hard work. There was a lot of things that I needed to heal from, grief and loss from my dad. He passed away, and I avoided that. I avoided it by drinking. And then the drinking led to other things, which, was at the time when all of this indictment and everything happened. So there was a ripple effect from that, from me not addressing trauma that I was going through, from me not addressing the grief and loss and not respecting it and running from it and hiding it, masking it with drinking alcohol. And then the ripple effect from that was me not being present, right? Being present in my business or being present, for my family. And so, I dug into all of those things really, really deep, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But I felt like I needed to do it because I wanted to be the best version of myself when I came home from my family. Like I promised my husband and my kids, mommy's going to make the most of this time that I'm away from you to be better for you when I come home. When you don't have your family physically there, it's God is who's there. I can't even put into words what it means to me because there are no words that can fully describe how much it means to me and how grateful I am and how blessed I am to have such a beautiful husband and children that has stood by me. And, sometimes through what we think is the worst thing ever, God makes something beautiful out of it. And my family has come closer together through all of this. Our marriage is stronger than it's ever been. And my children and I and our family unit as a whole is just closer than we've ever been because they supported me. They, Coach has a saying, he says, you know what? We're gonna love each other through it. So no matter what obstacle we're facing, no matter what we're dealing with, I'm just going to love you through it, and we're going to love each other through it. And that's kind of been our family's mantra is we're going to love each other through it. And my husband is he's one of a kind. He's been my rock. He still is and always will be. And when most people will run away, most people would have left. Most people that I was incarcerated with, very few of them do they have their family still intact? Is their husband there supporting them? But I had that, and so that's one of the things I'm so grateful and so blessed, that my husband and my children were there for me. I wouldn't have made it. I would have had my faith, but I couldn't have made it without my family. When I was away, I asked my husband and my children to send me impact letters because I needed to know. I needed to know how I hurt them. I needed them to be honest with me and tell me everything because that's the only way mommy could get better. And I needed to hear it because I know they were so hurt. I needed to hear how Omar felt when the raid happened, I didn't want to hear these things, but I knew I had to. I needed that. I needed to hear that raw feedback.
Jen Shah, the disgraced former Real Housewife of Salt Lake City, smiling and walking out of a federal prison in Texas overnight, a free woman.
When I finally walked out of Brian into my family's arms, into Coach, and my boys, they were all three there. We just hugged each other and cried because I was
they were coming to pick me up and take me home, not come and visit and have to come back. Like they were coming to pick me up and take me home. It was so crazy. I'm like, this is what the free world looks like. I'm like, it's like I forgot what it's like to be on the street or to look at things. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is that? Right. When I got released though, the first thing I wanted to do was just change my clothes. Just get into like some actual clothes. I remember putting on, coach had brought me some pajamas and it felt so good to just feel like actual pajamas and get out of the clothes that I'd been wearing for 3 years. Um, and then to lay in a bed. Oh my goodness. I remember just laying in the bed. I just wanted to lay there and then just sitting there. I didn't want to let go of Omar and Rafi. I was just holding them and just sitting them next to them, right? And just, I couldn't believe that I was just actually like out, that I wasn't there anymore and that they were picking me up and taking me home. And I think for them too, they were like, is this real? Are we really going to take you home, mommy? Or is somebody going to say that you have to go back? Or is the date changing? Because it kept changing. Like, and so, I know my son Omar was like, man, he told my husband, he was like, is mommy really coming home this time? I'll believe it when mommy's actually home, because it changes all the time, right? And so you learn to like not get your hopes up when you're in there. And but when I finally was with them, I said, Omar, mommy's really going home. You guys are taking me home. I find myself apologizing or feeling the guilt of not being there at graduation or not being there for prom, you know? And then I try to make up for it by, telling Omar that, I guess I'm trying to get too involved in his life. Like, well, you know what? We can have our own prom. Are you dating anybody? And he's like, no, mom. That ship has sailed. We're not doing a promposal because you missed out on it. I'm on home confinement and until August or possibly a little bit, before that. Um, but so how it works is, you can you still get to like go out. You get it approved. You can request, to go out for employment reasons, for work, religious, you know, whatever you need to do based on like your um, security level, I guess, so to speak. Some people, you have to earn certain levels, right? And so if you're doing well and you're low risk, then obviously you get more, options to be able to, or freedom, right, to be able to go out. But everything's still approved. You're the person that I deal with. They approve all of your everything that you do. So I wear an ankle monitor all of the time, and it basically monitors uh, when you leave your residence and come back. So if it's not approved for you to leave, they'll be notified. So everything is requested and approved for you to leave. So I've been home for 90 days now, and I would be lying if I said that I didn't feel like maybe there was a stigma with it. I never thought I would be wearing an ankle monitor. That's for sure. And I know people have like embraced it, and there's been some celebrities that like bedazzle it or do all these things to it. And I just thought, I don't want to, I basically just look at it as it's just what I have to do right now, and I find gratitude in it because it means I'm home. I'm different now. I'm much more mindful of everything I have, mindful and grateful. I live and operate each day from a place of gratitude, and where I didn't before, and a level of humility that I didn't have before, because unless you've gone through something, I feel like if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't know what that felt like. And so I've reached a level of humility that I operate from each and every day, which, is helps me to be, grateful. And I'm different now. I've done a lot of work on myself over the last 3 years, and I manage my emotions a lot better. I've done a lot of work on that so I can manage my emotions. And it's funny because those that are around me that have been around me the last 90 days since I've been home, they're like, wow, like you're still the same fun Jen, but like you're different. There's a different calmness about you. We're in situations before um, I would have reacted, you know, um, but now it's, I am able to pause and process things a little bit differently. And it's because, it really comes down to what really matters in my life. And some of these things that we get so worked up about, they're outside influences, right? They're unnecessary external external influences. And, so now I really focus on, what I can control. People can make mistakes, but we don't have to stay stuck in those mistakes. We can learn from those mistakes and move forward with integrity, with intention, with accountability, and be better. And I hope that, people will find it in their hearts to, give people a second chance, to give me a second chance to, have that mercy and grace and be able to move forward, because I think there's so much that can be done, and so much that we can learn from. I know that moving forward, one of the things that has helped me and get through the last 3 years is to be of service to others. And so I really feel like I can learn from what I've gone through and from the mistakes and utilize it to make better choices to help other people so that those, they can avoid those things, and just, use it to make the world a better place wherever I can and however I can.